in Australia. If you didn't know, Revolution Radio has a chat room, and we're in there right now, and we've already been chatting, so that's cool. And you can be there too. Simply go to freedomslips.com, and you can chat and listen from there. You can also check out our website, shinysideout.net, for more info, and also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. There are heaps of ways to listen to this station. If you live in Kentucky, tune into WZZR 101.3 FM. Awesome, it's like landed station. If you're anywhere else in the entire world, you can listen via one of these apps. There's Revolution Radio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn.com, Radio Tuner, Speaker.com, iHeart, Live 365, and yes, our very own Shiny Side Out app. Thanks, Dave, for that. At home, you can listen on a Grace tabletop digital radio if you like, and driving around in a GM motor vehicle, no advertising here, you can listen with a receiver enabled radio as you're driving around, and all of those are of course revolutions in radio. Imagine when actually, can you remember when you had only got a radio to listen to? That was horrible. Now, we are pleased to let you know as well that the station has introduced dedicated dial-to-listen numbers, and they're available 24/7 and immediately. And the numbers, and this is only for the States, guys, the numbers are as follows. Studio A, which is us right now, is 712-432-6958. Again, Studio A, 712-432-6958. And Studio B, 716-748-0112. Number again, Studio B, 716-748-0112. Now, if you would like a CD of our last year's show, or shows, check the station website for details. Okay, so go to Freedom Slips and have a look if you want to purchase our shows on a CD as a collection. It's awesome. Otherwise, of course, you can go to YouTube and have a look there if you want. We've got our own channel. The number to call in if you're in the United States of America, if you want to talk to us, is 347-688-2902. Number again is 347-688-2902. They always say too fast. I've got a story about that today. Or via Skype, just add Freedom Screen. Freedom Screen, one word, Freedom Screen. Solaris once again had an awesome show. What a shocker. And her guest was Dennis Fetcho. Dave, how are you?
AKA The Fetch.
The Fetch.
The Fetch, yeah. The Fetch. Is it the lie on, what's it called? The iLive show.
iLive?
Yep. He has a show on this. He's a great host. And and I did a little bit on the Event Horizon show on Revolution Radio with him. Awesome. So yeah, great guest. He's had some experience. And Solaris, once again, great show. And you know what? If you like to tune in to this show and you're missing all these great guests that Solaris has, why don't you log on and check out the station archives? That'd be great. Do yourself a favor and do that.
Definitely.
He's not on there anymore.
100%.
If you're anyone, but what's his name? The guy from not Sounds, the other one.
I have no idea where to speak, sir.
The Australian guy with the hat that did the music show.
The Australian guy with the hat. Molly Meldrum.
Yeah, if you're anyone but Molly Meldrum, you're stealing my bit. Do yourself a favour. So I borrowed a Simpsons gag. When don't I? It's crazy, you know. Hi, Towns. We're doing...
And we haven't spoken about a Baktoon.
Baktoons.
No Baktoon for many a moon. Actually, we have to do that Baktoon show again, believe it or not. It's one of the lost archives. How about that?
I'll act as best I can. You know, Meki, it's great that we've survived the Baktoon. So, I was going to say, this week, Meki, I probably watched about 90 hours of YouTube.
Yeah, you should get a life, but that's good.
No, I've got one. I watch YouTube channels. Quite satisfied, actually, with what I've seen. You know, and one of my friends, one of my dearest friends, he sent me messages. Now, it's not his genre to watch UFO shows, but there was one unsealed or unexplained or whatever it was that was on cable, and he's got cable, so he messages me down and says, "Dave, you should watch this show. It's right up your alley," he said. And so I turned it over.
Okay.
And every 2 minutes I was sending him why the debunker is wrong. Yeah, this was about the famous New Zealand case where there was a plane, the DC-3, that left the North Island going to the South Island, or vice versa, saw a whole bunch of things on radar, identified them out the window, and then once they landed, they said, "Oh, let's just go back up there and film it." So they had a film crew with them, and they started filming it, and that's that famous. They opened the side door on the DC-3 so they weren't looking out a window to get reflections. And there they are. You know, there's that UFO. On a single frame, it does a figure eight, a curved figure eight. Crazy thing. The debunkers said, "Oh, it's just fishing boats. You know, they have a lot of really bright lights to attract squid." Not at 17,000 feet, they don't. No, I have not seen a fishing boat at 17,000 feet before. This military guy says, "Well, they don't really know what they're looking at. You know, it was clearly a military flare." Yeah, okay. And the military had nothing in the air at all, right? It was swamp gas.
It was this flock of low-flying geese that were caught in swamp gas.
Yeah,
and there was an explosion, and there was lights, and obviously that's what happened. And foolish people.
Foolish. And one of the other debunking guys, they had a host of these debunkers on, and a panel. And none of them could debunk it enough for the audience to dismiss it. And what was
actually
really funny...
What do you call a group of debunkers? Is it a gaggle of debunkers or herd?
You mean like a parliament of owls?
Yeah, or like a murder of crows.
A murder of crows, yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's a stupidity of debunkers.
Oh, I like it. I really do. And what was really funny was one of the guys said, you know, it's just Venus. They're just looking at Venus. They don't know what they're looking at. You know, they're not astrologers. Well, that would be astronomers. And
yes.
Yeah. And, you know, whether they're, you know, whatever their star sign is, doesn't really matter, but, you know, they're not astrologers. No, it was very funny because, in fact, Venus wasn't even just over the horizon. It was way away. It hadn't even risen yet. Even at 17,000 feet, it wouldn't have been above them. So I really love the fact that these debunkers attempt to armchair debunk the most famous cases on the planet and get nowhere. They're zero. But my friend's going, Dave, stop with the text, man. Stop with the text.
Right.
You don't have to keep telling me what's wrong. And yeah, you know, it's very funny because I wanted him to realize that these guys, the debunkers, had no basis of fact in anything that they. And then the final guy, Mickey, this is the military guy, says, "Well, we don't really know what they saw." Well, you do, because you've got 7 affidavits all describing exactly the same thing. You know, because he was like, "Oh, they're not military observers. They don't really know what they're doing." Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, your eyes, how long have you been using your eyes for? 25 years? Nah. I've been using my eyes for 26 years, so obviously I'm much more adept at using my eyes than you are. Your brain you probably never use, right? So just go home now. Go home.
That's right.
God, these people, what?
I know. So, yeah, that was hilarious. And the only other thing that stood out this whole week, right, the whole week of 90 hours of watching stuff, was the testimony coming forward from the transcripts of the Ferguson case. Okay. And this came from another lawyer who was reading through it and found the hole in the case for the prosecution. And that was that the tabled document, which was provided by the prosecution lawyer and handed out to all of the jury, which was which was not law, it was just something from the 70s or something even earlier, which, like I said, once again, it isn't law, and it said that the police have the right to use lethal force, but that was thrown out by a federal jury or some federal, whatever it's called, court session that determines what laws are in the US. And that was determined unlawful, and a new law had been passed, and yes, federal laws override local jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Local law.
Trump.
That's what they're federal. That's what they're meant to do. And when that lawyer was asked, is it law? she said, I don't want to get into a law class here and start, teaching you law. And the one of the jurors asked, is that a federal law? And instead of saying yes to the new one, to the new document they were handed, 2 weeks after, were asked to forget everything that they'd been told about that previous document, but not what was wrong in that previous document. Just handed the new one, given confusion, and then when directly asked, was this new one federal law, refused to answer the question by stating, I'm not going to get into a law conversation with you. It's a lawyer in court handing them legal law statement on one hand, illegal on the other, and not telling them which one was which. Absolutely appalling. In fact, the non-lawful law that was first handed out described would have exonerated the police officer. The new one, which was correct, which was not explained to by anybody, was in fact would have incarcerated the policeman for their actions. So, you've got to ask yourself if there's a way of being able to appeal against it. Maybe it's the people. Maybe this guy is going to do it. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are in the US for being able to overturn a finding, but certainly if new evidence comes to light, boy oh boy, that judge has got something to say. The judge should have known better what was law and what wasn't, and should have advised the jury and should have had that answered question. So the question answered. So sorry about that, everyone. I thought if you thought it was going to be some shiny side out thing, but still, I have to say it's a conspiracy, because that person would have talked to someone else. They would have talked to their boss. What evidence have you got for this case? Like, I've got this, and this. I'm going to hand in this document. So someone else would have known. It's not just a mistake, and I believe that person is... If you want to focus your anger at someone, do it at the prosecution.
Focus your anger just by punching back and hit it very, very hard.
No, buy a little doll and stick pins in it. I don't mind what you do, whatever's your bag. Just non-violent.
Non-violent, yes. Very good. No, look, I had a near life experience this week. Not really.
A near life experience? You almost came to life.
No, it was more like people. See, it's
what's in my chest? That's your heart, sir.
I can feel something. We grew up with The Simpsons. You have to apologize us. Sorry, you have to pardon us. No, sorry. Let me just regroup here. So I was driving in my car, as I do on occasion from work, and I was listening to the radio. And for some obscure reason, I had switched from news, my normal talk station, which is just 24-hour news, to I don't know, some pop station. I don't know, in the FM band, and it happened to be that Kyle and Jackie O, who are quite famous in Australia.
Hey, we beat them in ratings, by the way.
Yes, I know we do. And I also knew that one of my good friends is very good friends with Kyle's girlfriend.
Wow.
It's a small world, very small world. Anyway, that's beside the point. So I'm listening to this show, and bingo, in fact, it was just after Kyle and Jackie O, this other guy came on. I don't know who the presenter is, very, very nondescript voice. And they're talking about Carrie Cassidy, because Carrie Cassidy actually was in Australia on the weekend, and she might still be here, I don't know. And she gave a few talks, which I missed because I forgot completely that she was there. Had worked 80 hours the week before, so that's my excuse. Anyway, point is, they brought all these experts on, and the scientists, and one guy who leads the skeptics of some. Well, actually, he teaches a course at some Brisbane University about skepticism.
Really?
And and they all go, There's no evidence for any of this. There's no scientific this. There's no. And then when the scientist guy, fairly young from his voice, might have been older, who knows? But the point is, he said, "I wish people would look at the science if they, just needed evidence. Just look at the science." And then he kept on going. If people actually came here, or aliens or whatever, it would take them forever to come here, and this and that and the other. And why would they come in? And so the thing is this. So I dialed in. Is what I did. That's my near-life experience here. Right? So I'm driving, right, and I'm on hands-free, so that's okay. I'm not doing that, but I'm dialing it, and they put me on hold like they do with talk shows, right?
Yeah.
And long story short, I didn't get to speak because it approached the end of the hour, 6 p.m. And the lady came back on that took my call and said, "Oh, sorry, we're running out of time." I said, "Not a worry." But my problem here is this. Right? So they interviewed Carrie, and asked a couple of questions, and then they had the experts talk about that at length. And as I said, well, first of all, the skeptic said, you have to be skeptic with everything. You can't believe it, this and that. And then the host, which was quite neutral and was quite good, I thought, said, well, can't we? Isn't there something to it? And then the skeptic goes, well, there should be some evidence. And everybody harped on the evidence. There's no evidence for any of it. Both the skeptic and the scientist said this over and over and over again. So I really felt put out by not being able to speak on the air as well there. So because the evidence is this, guys, there's tons of evidence around it. Visitations as well as interference, and potentially, of course, ancient cultures that had achieved space travel themselves on planet Earth, right here. So if we go out to space, chances are, I think, we're going to meet ourselves eventually. Point, though, is that there's tons of evidence. I'm not saying there's this evidence that you just have around the corner, but if you look at the whole breadth and scope of what we bring to you, what this station brings to you, what has been brought to you for the last 50 years, if only one case out of the millions of visitations, sightings, interferences, first, second, third, fourth, encounters, if only one of them is true, only one, then the whole thing is true. I'm not saying that all the other encounters are true, but just the one. Because if just the one is true, then there's something out there. I think there's a lot more that's true than that, and I think there's a lot more going on than we know. And he kept talking about science, and there's no evidence. I go, stop. I wanted to say stop.
Stop with
time out.
Yeah.
Stop sciencing, because this is the thing with science, right? And I was going to give them the example about the train that goes faster than 80 miles an hour. Have all the air sucked out of it.
That's right.
People actually believed it 150 years ago, right? So he said, we can't travel faster than light. It's impossible. It'll take hundreds and thousands of years to get from one solar system to the next, because this, that, and the other. I mean, the thing is this, right? If there's one thing that we've learned, or should have learned, is that our scientific knowledge is just a stepping stone. Wherever we are today is just a stepping stone to tomorrow.
That's right.
You look back in time. I don't care how far you go, right? Or even how close. The knowledge that existed at that point was only a stepping stone to get us to where we are today. So, will we eventually travel faster than light? Absolutely, and I think we already are.
I think we'll avoid light.
Yeah, I don't think we'll travel within the Einstein space-time continuum at all.
That's right.
I agree, Dave. I think there might be wormholes and all kinds of wonderful things, right? But I think that it might be a very different kind of travel that we will discover going forward, right? So it irks me when people consistently insist that they, you should be a skeptic, you should look at the science. Yeah, well, you look at the science. You have to push the boundaries. I mean, you explain to me what the double slit experiment actually means, Mr. Scientist. Thank you very much.
Go on.
Explain it, right?
That's
Go
right.
on then, right? We've frozen light in a crystal. We have frozen light in a crystal. We already know that the speed of light is not the fastest you can go. We know this. You know why? Because we have spooky action at a distance, which is quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement. Look it up, Mr. Scientist, right? It's instantaneous, which means it's faster.
You're
right?
right.
Go
You're
on,
right.
yes.
Yeah, no. Let me continue with you. They've just speculated that, in fact, when the universe, if the Big Bang Theory, because they all love the science of the Big Bang Theory. Remember, it's still a theory, and they love the science of it because it's fictional. We don't know that it happened. It's still a theory. And they said, well, this week there wouldn't have been light for a long time because it would have expanded faster than the speed of light. Hang on. That means something went faster than the speed of light.
Impossible.
According to their own physics.
And the whole universe implodes because of its own improbability. What? That's not right. Yeah, look, that's exactly right, Dave. Right, and look at the science then. Okay, I mean, we should not stifle inquisitiveness, and we must not be bound by dogma. Okay, scientists out there, they're not all dogmatic. However, a lot of scientists are looking to be funded and have tenure. And I understand. I get it, guys. I really do. I understand. You have to make a living. I have to make a living. I get it, right? And yet, it's the speed of thought tones, of course, right? The speed of thought. Again, how fast is that? Well, they will argue with you. Well, it's as fast as your neurons are firing, which is the speed of light. Okay, that's how fast your neurons are firing. But because there's electricity coursing through your, I think speed of thought is actually faster, and vastly. I think our entire mind is vastly misunderstood because I think it's actually a 5 or 4 dimensional construct, and we only see like a 3 or 4 dimensional shadow of it here.
Oh, you're on a roll today, Mickey.
I'm sorry. It's just
you're
like I said.
Up, man. Was that not the most annoying thing to sit there and hold, listening to them dribble on?
Yeah,
with their debunking.
Yep. Absolutely. So I wanted to talk, right? But as I said, I didn't get my chance. Hence, a near-life experience. I didn't get to add my 5 cents worth. But what I will attempt to see if Jackie and Kyle will interview us. I'm going to talk to my buddy.
Ooh, I like the sound.
So
of that.
I'm of course, look. What's going to happen is this: they're going to make fun of us. I get that, and that's fine, right?
Yep.
But I do want to put it out there. So I'm going to talk to my buddy and I say, look, is this anything at all we can arrange? Mm-hmm. So if you're in Australia, you might very well hear Dave and Mackie's brand of Shiny Side Out on the commercial airwaves just for that one show. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I just want to put it out there.
Yeah.
I do want to talk to those guys. I'm going to say, look, this is what it is. We're not, okay, tinfoil hatting, yes, but we are not crazy, okay? We're not certified insane. We're not sitting in some kind of a bunker yet.
But talk for yourself.
Yeah, no, look, but the problem I'm having is that people are being, I guess, scared away from serious scientific inquiry, all right? We are pushing people to the fringe, like, everybody on the station, ourselves included, we're considered fringe. Our listeners, you guys, probably consider fringe as well. Now, that's okay though. It's good to be on the fringe because the fringe pushes the boundaries. The human race is not moved by the mass. Mm-hmm. It is never moved by the herd. The human race is moved by the few on the fringe. Mm-hmm. Okay, so welcome to the progress of the human race, and that's all I have to say about that.
Oh, Mickey, you know what? I think I had my week of being able to SMS at least my friend and get all my point across. I'm so sorry. Do you know what? Even you might have had a better chance of getting on air. Did they ask you? Did they filter you first? Yeah,
they asked me, well, what do you want to say? So I explained to her, we actually we've interviewed Carrie before, and we have a radio show on the internet, blah blah blah. And she goes, oh, okay. So I guess she didn't fob me off. I was considerate.
Sitting in queue. That's right.
Yeah,
well,
that's right.
One of my friends has a technique where you're pro the whole thing, saying whatever their thing is, and then you turn up anti at the end. So you say, yeah, I've looked at the evidence, and they think you're anti the person on, and they're backing up their point of view. Dead set. Oh my goodness, how can they? Oh no, actually no, it's the other way around. I do believe it, and so you get your point across.
I like it.
It's very clever. My friend does that politically, and it's hilarious to hear him do it. Now, Mickey.
Yes, sir.
Last week we talked about unanswered questions, and we had a whole bunch of those, and yes. I think it was a pretty cool show. This week I mentioned one thing about this today at the UFO Society meeting in Tuggerah. If you want to go, it's the fourth Sunday in Wyong. So just look it up on the net. It's really cool. Go there. One of the things that I mentioned, Mickey, and I'll use this as a segue, is the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
All right. So do you mind?
Please.
Okay. So the Large Hadron Collider has the smartest people on the planet working on this thing to try and discover the origins of the entire universe and the smallest particles and do whatever it is that they're doing publicly. They announce they're doing that. Behind the doors, we don't know if they're making a time machine or if they're making some kind of gateway or portal to another universe. Who knows? Just like in the movie Contact. We don't know what they're really doing and where they got the instructions for this stuff, but they're doing it, and that's the go. Unfortunately, years after the installation of it, they still hadn't got it working, and when interviewed and asked why they thought the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, wasn't working, their own response, their own non-scripted response was they think that they're coming back in time, themselves are coming back in time to stop themselves from doing it. That's what the smartest minds on the planet gave as an excuse for it not working. And they were serious. They were dead serious because they thought by making this machine there would be some kind of cataclysm and that they were stopping themselves, their future selves were coming back in time to stop themselves from making it. And I just think, wow.
Yep.
Wow, if that's the only explanation they can come up with, because they said it doesn't, none of the things make sense. It doesn't make sense that it's not working. It doesn't make sense that this thing failed, and this, catastrophic, cascade error, faults and everything all the time wouldn't work. Of course, it's working now, but for some reason, maybe they had to modify it. Maybe that's
Possibly.
what it was all about. That's a great segue to today's topic.
Which is time travel. Yeah, look, we lost this show as part of our ongoing reclamation of lost shows. This is show number 4, guys. This is actually show number 4. Back then, show number 4 consisted of 3 pages of show notes. We have now expanded that to 17, sorry. Yeah, 17. So we've got a bit more stuff to talk about. So this will probably go over a couple of shows here. And time travel, we obviously, because it was show number 4, it was very much on the forefront of our mind, right up there with visitations, visitors, ancient technologies, ancient aliens, and all that kind of stuff, and dimensional travel. So I agree, and fascinating. And in fact, because it is at the edge of science, in fact, there are now, and we will talk about that in the course of the shows. Yep. There are now scientific ways of explaining and even potentially attempting time travel. So, in fact, we already have disparate experiences of time. I'll give you a very quick example of what I mean by that before we go into the meat. So, if the faster you go, the slower time will go for you.
Einstein's universe.
Correct. That's relativity, essentially, right? So, if you, and this has actually been proven scientifically, if you're in a plane that's just touching, the void, if you will, just out of the atmosphere, just inside the atmosphere, you go really, really fast, and they put this atomic clock on the plane, and they put another atomic clock on the ground, and they were synchronized, and then off we go. There goes the plane, right? And the plane went up, and we're talking only fractions of seconds here, right? Only fractions of seconds, but the atomic clock was out of sync by the time it landed, because it went really, really fast, the plane, right? Was out of sync with the atomic clock on the ground by a few milli or microseconds. I can't remember the exact amount of time they were out of sync. But it goes to show that time is not a constantly flowing thing or entity or some kind of structure, right? It actually modulates. Okay, it will adjust to whatever speed you are traveling at.
So Meki, so if we had a town and it was the solar system, for instance, and in the middle of it we had a giant clock tower, we could all see it, we synchronized our watches. By the planets going faster than the other planets, those planets would see that clock moving slowly. If we all met up years later, our clocks would be hideously incorrect compared to each other. And that's the thing about it. It's only relative to how fast you're going.
Yep. So if you're an astronaut, or space traveler or whatever, right, and you blast off from the surface of the Earth, burning all kinds of fuel, and you make it to the next solar system, which I think is 3.2 light years away, and you're traveling near the speed of light, because we're still in Einstein's universe. I'm not going to poo-poo it too much. You will travel, it'll probably take you 20, 30 years to get there. Come back, maybe another 20, 30 years. Let's say altogether, maybe you traveled 50 years, right? You did. On Earth, thousands of years would have passed. So that's the conundrum with traveling near or at the speed of light, right? You age a lot slower than everybody around you. So, 4.2. Thank you, sir. 4.2 light years, and it's Alpha Centauri. Thanks, Dave. Now, I'd like to start today's show. Well, we already have, but with a quote. And this is the quote, guys. The distinction between the past, present, and future is only an illusion, however persistent. And who do you think might have said that?
I've got a guess.
Go on then.
Albert Einstein.
Excellent. Very good. A meek little patent clerk from Switzerland. That's who.
Who didn't continue. He didn't finish high school, and he was a patent clerk.
Correct.
Caught the bus.
Yes, very actually quite a interesting individual if you have a chance to read up on him. But yeah, so one of the greatest minds, arguably, of the 20th century, and certainly in mathematics. I don't know if you guys are math files or not, but if you like maths, you understand, in physics for that matter, applied physics and theoretical physics. Time or the flow of time is completely irrelevant to your equations. Doesn't matter if time goes forward or backwards. Completely irrelevant. Okay, I mean the integer, sorry, the sign in front of the time constant is completely irrelevant to any calculations we make. Okay,
in fact, it's not included unless you're trying to evaluate the differential in time itself.
Correct.
It's not included in any other equation.
Correct. So now, but let's look at what time is, or how time travel relates to us. So time travel is the concept of moving between different points in time in a manner analogous to moving between different points in space. So you have the freedom. Obviously, we have the freedom to move, to drive from Sydney to Melbourne, from Dallas to New York, from Paris to London, if you want to. Right? That's the freedom. Now, time travel assumes that we have the same kind of freedom to travel within time. Generally using a theoretical invention known as a time machine. What a shocker. Time travel is a recognized concept in philosophy and fiction, but has very limited support in theoretical physics, and usually only in conjunction with quantum mechanics or Einstein-Rosen bridges, both of which we will speak of going forward.
Hey,
Some theories...
They stayed up all night thinking that name up, Time Machine.
Right? Sure. Okay, it's time? And it's like a machine that moves us through time. Oh, I don't know.
You would think about the Latin for chronograph, right? You'd think that they would have incorporated the Latin name in it, but they didn't.
Yeah, you think so. And in fact, in some fictional literature, they're called chrononauts.
Chrononauts, yeah, that's right.
Chrononauts.
Time travel. Yeah, very nice.
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Now, some theories, and here we were looking specifically at special and general relativity, suggest that suitable geometries of space-time or specific types of motion in space might allow time travel into the past and future if these geometries or motions were possible.
Yeah,
okay, so
the underlined were possible.
Correct. So special and general relativity allow for the potential of time travel. In technical papers, physicists generally avoid the commonplace language of moving or traveling through time, because movement normally refers only to a change in spatial position.
That's right.
As the time coordinate is varied. Well, the time coordinate, you can't do much about it. You just go with the flow, really, right? That's where that comes from, by the way. Go with the flow, because there's nothing you can do. You can't swim against the flow of time, we think. And instead, they discuss the possibility of closed time-like curves, CTCs. We'll talk about those a lot more going forward.
Remember that term, CTC.
Absolutely. And they are world lines that form closed loops in space-time, allowing objects to return to their own past. This also ties in to the multiverse theory, in which we will talk about, but just very briefly. So in the multiverse theory, you travel back in time, you kill your grandfather. That's okay, because guess what? Ka-chunk, you've created a new time stream, which is now the one you're living in. You can never ever go back to your original one, because you killed your grandfather.
You've just changed it, exactly. But
correct.
You were alive in one, and this is the paradox, the grandfather-son paradox, which this answers that paradox by suggesting the closed time-like curves.
That's correct. Now, there are known solutions to the equations of general relativity that describe space-times, guys, which contain closed time-like curves, such as Gödel's space-time. Look it up. But the physical plausibility of these solutions is uncertain. What a shock. Relativity predicts that if one were to move away from the Earth at relativistic velocities, meaning close to the speed of light, and return, more time would have passed, as we explained to you guys earlier, on Earth than for the traveler. So in this sense, it is accepted that relativity allows travel into the future. Well, yes, absolutely. However, it's not really a voluntary or controlled travel in time, because you're not determining, I'm going to Thursday next week. Not really, at least.
You actually have to travel physically somewhere at a particular velocity to then return back, having not aged. You aged in your own linear time, but the people on Earth aged in what would be a comparative accelerated time. It's only because you age slower for you to go in the future. It's very strange. Get your head around it.
Oh, absolutely. Now, on the other hand, this is forward time travel, guys. Forward time travel. Okay, so on the other hand, many in the scientific community believe that backwards time travel is highly unlikely, and this is where we come into causality. Okay, so any theory that would allow time travel to, go backwards, would potentially introduce problems of causality, which is, the paradoxes we spoke about. Right?
Right.
Because we've got cause and effect, so we all believe we live in a linear kind of world, where you do something, and then something else happens as a result of that, and, so forth into infinity, right? And you can't trace that backwards. Having said that, there was an experiment fairly recently, okay, which was actually pretty much knocking that on the head, because what the scientists did, and we actually spoke about that in one of our shows, they influenced the outcome of the experiment after the experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you recall this. We're going to dig it up for you for next week. But so causality is no longer really with us. So it's he arrests causality. Thank you very much. Now, having said that,
was
of course,
a quantum experiment, wasn't it, Mickey?
Yeah. So on a quantum, absolutely, on a quantum level, causality doesn't seem to matter. On our relative level here, in the macroverse, it does seem to matter. So we need to understand where the breaking points are. Where does the quantum universe begin and our universe that we experience every day end? And maybe there's something up higher yet. I have no idea. The hyper universe or something, right? It's very interesting though. And now the classic example of a problem involving causality is the grandfather paradox, right? So what happens if you go back in time, kill your own grandfather before your father was conceived, right? But some scientists believe that paradoxes can be avoided by appealing either to the Novikov self-consistency principle or to the notion of branching parallel universes, which is what we've just discussed, the multiverse. Now, Novikov's self-consistency principle is essentially saying that if you travel back in time, anything that you do, you would have done anyway. Okay, so all your actions are actually in that way sort of predetermined. So you travel back in time, and something will happen that will not allow you to kill your grandfather for some reason. All right, self-consistency.
I see what that says. It's going to preserve the timeline.
Correct. Yeah, it's sort of like the preservation of energy kind of principle, right? So whether or not that's true, I don't know. I have not traveled in time yet that I know of. However, there we are. Now, backwards time travel seems to be a fairly modern idea, right? But the origin of that is somewhat ambiguous. I mean, you have to ask yourself, Dave, right? When did people first start thinking about time travel? They think, oh man, I'm a peasant in feudal Europe. I really don't like my time. I wish I could go to the future where everybody lives like brothers, right? I don't know. Maybe not.
Only to turn up now and get very disappointed in it.
Absolutely. I tell you, mate.
So get back, you can't. Good luck with that.
So, one early story with hints of backwards time travel is memoirs, I should say, of the 20th century, written in 1733 by Samuel Madden, which is mainly a series of letters from British ambassadors in various countries to the British Lord High Treasurer, along with a few replies from the British Foreign Office, all purportedly written in 1997 and 1998 in describing the conditions of that era. Okay. However, the framing story is that these letters were actual documents given to the narrator by his guardian angel one night in 1728. For this reason, it is suggested that this particular story is the first time traveler story in English literature, right? And in fact, it's the guardian angel who returns with state documents from 1998 to 1728. Though you have to ask yourself, why would the guardian angel, a celestial being, want to give state documents to a person 200 years in the past? Now, it's a little it's a little flimsy. We have a caller, Dave.
Yes,
who is calling us?
Yes, we have area code 33.
I don't know what that means.
Good day, guys. Thank you for taking the call. I'm at break at work here, and I've only got about a minute or two anyway.
That's fine.
But I'll spit it out, and it'd be cool if you guys talked about it because I'm listening live on my phone. All right, I called into Sean Morton's show a couple weeks ago and briefly mentioned this. All right, here it is. I'm just going to spit it all out. First of all, write these two YouTube videos to search for. One's called The Power of 10.
The Power of 10, yeah, gotcha.
I assume you know what The Power of 10 is spelled out T-E-N, and then just watch a fractal zoom. You know what a fractal is?
I know
just
what a
watch it zoom infinitely, right?
I know what a fractal
zoom
is.
All right. So the age-old question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I thought the chicken always came first because who's going to sit on the egg to incubate it? So that means what? A chicken just popped into existence? Therefore, we just popped into existence, or have we always just been here based on a fractal? Because to say that there's a beginning to the universe, and if time doesn't really exist, how can there be a beginning or an end? It's infinite. Think about, I'll describe the Power of 10 video. It's a couple sitting on a picnic, and this video is from 1977, and it zooms out to the 10th power by meters, I believe, all the way out from Earth, out of the solar system, out of the galaxy, until the furthest
I remember
spot
that
they could
video.
see. Yeah, and it then zooms all the way back in, and then into the cells, into the, the atoms and the nucleus and everything. I think even to the quark inside the atom. Is every universe just inside the nucleus of an atom or in a quark, and it just, folds in on itself like that, like a fractal, infinitely forever? And I think that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
Sir. That's awesome. And
check out that video if you haven't seen it, guys. Y'all have a good night. I'll keep listening. Take care.
You too. Take care.
Thank you. And just to what our esteemed listener and caller in just said, that is one of the fundamental questions, right? Infinite regression. I mean, how far can you reduce this? And you're right. I mean, as you're zooming into and out of the fractals, there's actually no end to it, and that's really the key point here. So what we are focusing on in our limited understanding of the universe, we're focusing on the Newton-Einstein universe, the relativistic universe that we experience every day, that makes you trip in the dark and all those wonderful things. And then, of course, we have now dabbled in quantum mechanics, which is quite a few magnitudes smaller than what we're experiencing every day. Now, but to the point of our caller, well, why stop there? Why not go further and go past the strings? Go past what we've discovered thus far. Because I mean, if truly we look at this, I guess objectively, I mean, why not infinitely regress? Why not going further and further into the unknown? Because there's no reason why anything should stop at any given point. And that the same goes in the other direction. Maybe our entire universe is folded into the nucleus of an atom on a higher reality, right? So I'm with you, and I think Dave is with you as well.
Yeah, I'm with everyone. Yay!
Dave is with everyone. Now, sorry to get back on track, guys, and thank you very much. That was awesome.
It was, and I've seen the video myself, and it was one of the things that opened my mind, that made me feel sort of, to be honest, insignificant, at the same time being able to scope the size of the universe. It's very important, and I would emphasize that everyone at least looks at that, and also the comparative size of the sun against the other suns that we've found. So do yourself, once again, do yourself a favor for anyone, but I'll say maybe stealing my bit. Meki.
And I want to give you just the answer to who came first, the egg or the egg or the chicken, or the chicken or the egg, right? So I'm going to tell you the rooster. You're going to think about that for a little bit, okay? So but I'm sorry.
Well,
terrible joke.
Scientists put more than $1 million towards this research on it, and discovered that there was no definition whether the egg was a chicken egg or not.
I hear you. I still maintain
that was their outcome, Meki.
Yes, I hear you.
You'll give me $1 million, and I'll tell you a different story. I'll tell you that the egg, irrelevant of being a chicken or not, would have come first, whether there was chickens on Earth or not. And of course, since the chicken seems to have come from dinosaurs, then the chicken egg would have come first, and the chicken itself would have been a mutation. So there you go, it was the egg.
I still think it was the rooster. Nonetheless, though, in 1830, think about it for a second, guys. Just think about it. In 1836, Alexander Veltman published Predki Kalimerosa, Alexander Filipovich Makedonsky, the forebears of Kalimeros, Alexander, son of Philip of Macedon, which has been called the first original Russian science fiction novel and the first novel to use time travel. In it, the narrator writes to ancient Greece on a hippogriff. If you know Harry Potter, you know what a hippogriff is. It's a winged horse with the head of an eagle and the feet of eagles, and it's very strange. Where he meets Aristotle and goes on a voyage with Alexander the Great before returning to the 19th century. Very interesting, right? Now, as we've said, mathematically there's no distinction between the past and future in physics. Okay, humans perceive times differently at increasing speeds. We've spoken about that to you guys, the atomic clocks. Okay, now time is measured in seconds, minutes, and hours. Base 12 goes back to Sumerian times. Okay, our way of telling time goes back to Sumerian times, which I know you love this. Could be connected to the Anunnaki. Yes.
Oh yeah. That's
Right now, hey,
that's what he's talking about.
Just saying, again, we had a very interesting caller actually once, and I can't remember who said it. Could have been Just in Time or Tones or SJ even. The reason we've got a base 12 is because of our fingers. You've got 3 joints in every finger. You count them, there's 12. Boom. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. Nonetheless, it goes back to Sumerian times, guys. Now, there's also something we call natural time and mechanical time. So what is natural time? Natural time is what the primitive people live by. The dawn and the dusk, and and the hours in between, when the sun is highest, when the sun is lowest, when you follow the stars and the moon, the phases of the moon. So all these natural time tellers, if you will, these points, these reference points. Okay, we though, that's us, right, buddy?
Oh yeah,
civilized man. We have mechanical time. We no longer need. We don't need the sun or the moon. We are inside our own little caves all day long, underground, never seeing the sun. Okay, and working all kinds of ungodly hours. In fact, working through the night. We've got night shifts now. We are now going against natural time. Our society, our civilization, our industry, our economics, our entire, industrial complex demands that we no longer follow natural time. And that's the biggest problem that the Aborigines had with the Australian invaders. The different perception of time, right? Because for them, they will just do what is necessary to them at any given time. Right? It's very difficult to explain a person that grew up with natural time what mechanical time is. Do I make myself understood, Dave, do you think?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Look, it's very important to understand that difference, guys, because we have given up our right to experience natural time, okay, for dollars and for gain and for all kinds of wonderful things, and we are now bound to mechanical time, right? Hands up everyone who does not own some kind of time-telling device. It might be a mobile phone these days, a wristwatch,
those
something.
Who don't own one.
Yes.
Oh,
exactly right.
No one. I bet there's a few listeners on this station, Meki, that could do that. They could say it because they're offline kind of guys, kind of people. They're offline. They don't like the grid. I'm sure there's people that wake up because the sun wakes them up.
Look, and that's how we should wake up. The rooster, right? Again, the rooster gets you up in the morning. Okay, guys. So now look, we've talked about a few different things here, and we've got a bit of time still, which is great. So let's talk about Einstein a little here, and let's talk about what Mr. Hawking is doing for us, and also let's talk about black holes for a second. So, Dave, do you want to grab one, or?
I don't know where we're at.
Okay.
Einsteinian time travel.
Bingo.
Black hole connection mathematically proven by Stephen Hawking, slingshotting around a black hole. According to Einstein's theory of general relativity, which I know, gravity is a curve in space-time, and astronomers regularly observe this phenomenon when they study light moving near a sufficiently massive object. It's called lensing. So
that's correct.
Particularly large suns, for instance, can cause an otherwise straight beam of light to curve in what we call the gravitational lensing effect. So they can in fact see what's behind it. If it's large enough, if it has large enough being mass, not in size, not in width, but small enough and heavy enough. What does this have to do with time? Remember, any event that occurs in the universe has to involve both space and time. Gravity doesn't just pull on space, it also pulls on time. You wouldn't be able to notice minutes change in the flow of time, but a sufficiently massive object would make a huge difference. Say, like a supermassive black hole. And Sagittarius A comes to mind, at the center of our galaxy. Here, the mass of 4 million suns, I think it might be higher.
Wow.
It's actually got 4 times the mass of all of the stars in the galaxy, in our galaxy.
That's incredible.
Yeah. As a single infinitely dense point, it's not entirely infinitely dense, but it's quite there, known as a singularity. That's what's inside a black hole. Circle this black hole for a while without falling in, and you'll experience time at half the Earth rate. In other words, you'd round out a 5-year journey to discover an entire decade had passed on Earth. Meki, this is one of the things that as the material's being consumed by a black hole, it actually almost freezes in time right before it's sucked in. It's traveling that fast around the outside. It's extraordinary. Speed also plays a role in the rate at which we experience time, as my esteemed co-host has mentioned or earlier. Time passes more slowly, closer to the approach, the unbreakable cosmic speed limit, which neither of us believe in. We call the speed of light. It's obviously the letter C in E equals mc squared. For instance, the hands of a clock in a speeding train move more slowly than those of a stationary clock, but not to the observer. The observer standing next to the stationary clock would watch it occur slowly, but the person next to their clock would. It's too complicated for some people. A human passenger wouldn't feel the difference, and that's basically, if such a train could attain 99.999% speed of light, only 1 year would pass on board for every 223 years back at the train station.
Isn't that incredible?
Yep, absolutely. And I'll tell you, if you look out the windows, you don't see anything in front of you. You see all the stars out the side and nothing behind you.
Yep. Now, I have a question on this, and this is just a drilling question. I'm going to throw it in here.
Here it goes.
So let's say I'm sorry. Let's say you're traveling in this massive spaceship, which is huge. Like it's in fact as long as our solar system. It's just
Why not?
This is just a thought experiment. Just a thought experiment. It's as long as our solar system, right? So it's very long, and it travels at 99.999% the speed of light.
Yep.
Okay. So getting really, really fast. That's very fast. Now, within that very large spaceship, which is the length of our solar system, which is very, very long, I launch another spaceship at the speed of 99.99% the speed of light. So I'm already traveling. So my base. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm standing still. I'm standing inside this spaceship, right? I'm traveling close to the speed of light. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't feel the wind rushing in my face, right? It's not like gravity is smashing me against the wall. As far as I'm concerned, I might as well be stationary. It's like the effect you have on a train, right? Your body actually adjusts to the speed. If the train stops, inertia carries you forward, then you will feel the difference in speed between standing and traveling. But while you're traveling, you don't feel that speed difference, do you? No. So my question is, so if I start at this base point, right, a standard base point in the spaceship, if I launch another spaceship in that spaceship, traveling at 99.99% the speed of light, is that possible? And how fast would that spaceship inside the spaceship actually go? Don't want an answer, just want you to think about it. It's a bit of mind bender. I like it. Maybe I'm just foolish.
I have an example. This is one that I put forward to my physics teacher, which was, if we're in that spaceship, the same spaceship, it's one whole solar system long, like Meki said. I'm standing next to you, Meki. Except it's 99.99999 infinitesimally long nines. We're only we may as well be doing the speed of light, but we're not, right?
Yeah.
In fact, the differential is so small that I've got a tennis ball in my hand and I decided to throw it in front of me. What happens? Right?
Excellent question.
I'm able to make it then go at the speed of light. Now, it's no pun intended, in all reality,
in all reality,
it would just fall to the floor if we had gravity, or go all the way to the end of the solar system if that were the case. In our sphere bubble of existence, traveling at that speed, we're not traveling at that speed. It would just appear to us just to go normally. But if there was an observer, it would have frozen in time. It would pause in the air and actually not be able to go anywhere. That's the paradox, you see. How can you travel faster? According to the equation errors out at being able to go faster than the speed of light. And therefore it doesn't actually move. So, in fact, once you hit the speed of light, you stop moving. But
to an observer, that is correct.
Exactly.
That is really the kicker. And that, I think, is the elegant way of saying or reasoning out that way, because, well, that's where you have the two speeds, the observer speed and the actual experienced speed, right? Because to the observer, well, you're not breaking any laws, and to the person experiencing it, well, you're existing in your own little, I guess, experiential bubble there. It is really quite. It's fascinating. I know why people go into theoretical physics. It's just mind-bending stuff, guys. We're getting close to the end of the first hour, and then I want to take this opportunity to quickly let you know that this is a listener-funded, listener-supported, listener-endorsed radio station on the internet, the best and biggest, as far as we know, that Hawk runs here. So if you could donate your hard-earned cash, that would be awesome. I mean, donate it or let the federal government take it. Up to you. So,
your choice.
Your choice.
Out.
It's in the chat room on the left-hand side, in the middle of all the radio buttons there. Donate, it says. It's pretty, straightforward. You do need a PayPal account, which I still don't have. Need to get it, but please do donate what you can. It's I live in the 20th century. It's horrible, isn't it? Clearly not in the 21st. So it is very, very important that this station keeps going. I think, Dave thinks, everybody else that's here thinks. And there are lots of people that I'm sure would love to see us go under and fold and no longer produce any of this stuff that we talk about, right?
Don't let it happen.
Do not.
No. Mickey,
that would have been really cool if the music came on right then.
Yeah,
but
it would. That would have been awesome had you timed it right. Guess what? I've got something to say. Both of us have an enormous bookshelf collection of books behind us. Not all of them are real.
Mine is real.
No, mine's not. And I have to say that I was talking to someone, and we were making jokes about the Gen Tech. Gen Tech are the people who have been born in technology and nothing else, and they can't read when their batteries go flat. When their batteries go flat, they can't read anymore. So
what do we do now? No words.
Oh my goodness, there's nothing to do. I've got no words on my page. Yeah, that's because it's powered by batteries. However, it might seem old school, but maybe it'll become retro and become popular again to actually have a book.
Yeah, I hope so.
Meki, I got Hawk a gift. As I told you, he's received it. And his first comment was, "Wow, that's a big mug."
Yes.
So if you can, you can through our own website, you can check it out. Shiny Side Out mugs, they're really cool. They advertise the station as co-branding, and go get yourself a 20-ounce mug, and enjoy those coffees for the winter. Take care. It's good for soup too, by the way. We'll catch you after this. We'll catch you after this short break.
Soup.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
guys are hammers. And to hammers, everything looks like nails.
I heard that.
You were meant to. So you see something that's important, you call it out. We'll make it happen.
Okay. Mother Nature is a serial killer. No one's better, more creative. Like all serial killers, she can't help the urge to want to get caught. What good are all those brilliant crimes if no one takes the credit? So she leaves crumbs. Now the hard part is seeing the crumbs for the clues they are. Sometimes the thing you thought was the most brutal aspect turns out to be the chink in its armor. And she loves disguising her weaknesses as strengths.
If you can fight, fight.
Head north, Pinky. Hello? Is there anyone out there hearing this?
Help each other.
Mexico City has been declared
Be prepared for anything. Our war has just begun.
We are the hammers, and we are the nails. The world stands upon the precipice of total insanity, and we need you, and we hope you need us, bringing information, news, and as much truth as we can eke out before Mother Nature turns us to crumbs. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, working to become millions of voices singing in unison to bring the sanity back home. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it, I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Hey folks, Captain Nighthawk here. Do you have a favorite host? Well, imagine if you will having all the broadcast shows from 2013 to listen to anytime you want. Awesome deal, huh? Anyway, so stop by freedomslips.com and order the entire 2013 library of your favorite host for just $30. Not only do you help with the station funding to keep us on the air, you also help the host because they get half of the net on every order. Also, we have Revolution Radio's all-time favorite shows all on one disc. The details are really broad, so you'll have to visit the website and go look at the details yourself. It's, again, www.freedomslips.com/season2013.htm. And get your favorites. First come, first serve, 7 to 21 days for delivery. Thank you. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps, including me. Later.
We've got to stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with Davey Mickey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, the number one listener-supported talk radio on the net. Well done, Hawk, for that. Dead set. Someone should pat him on the back. He's done awesome. Since it is listener-funded radio and you like what you hear, please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button. And if you're not sure where it is, it's on the left in the chat room. Your donation is greatly appreciated and helps run this station. Yes, help support Mickey and mine, Shiny Side Out Airtime. I'd like to say hello to everyone new. Mickey, our people are subscribing to our videos. We're getting email from people, everyone new to doing that. We had a new caller tonight. Thank you so much. It's awesome. We're glad you're on board with us. And stay tuned. We have exciting things to come. We are halfway through show number 144, and I need Mickey's deciphering of that number in decimal. Oh, he's muted. Hello.
And he is muted. 440 and 100. I had no idea I was muted. 440 and 100. How about them apples? I think the CIA muted me. That's what happened.
That's great. Do you know, Mickey, I just on that topic, I watched a video of a reporter who was typing a news story and videoed what was going on their PC. When they clicked anywhere on the screen, the mouse moved independently, clicked on other stuff, started deleting text, only chosen text they didn't want in the story, and someone was vetting them. And they immediately began filming this. It was a news story, a controversial story, and they started filming it and then unplugged the internet and it stopped. So someone was hacking this reporter's laptop and on this breaking story and not letting them get it out. It was extraordinary. It's a good video if you want to see it. It's real. And Mickey, they can get in.
Yes, of course they can. Now, sorry, there's one thing we have actually forgotten, Dave.
What?
That's to wish our fellow compatriots in America happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, happy Thanksgiving, of course.
It's the Thanksgiving weekend, so happy Thanksgiving to you guys. I know this is actually a much more, well, I've been told it's a more important holiday than Christmas. You make your way across the country to be with family and friends for your Thanksgiving dinner. I hope you have a peaceful and enjoyable one and put your feet up. I think, so hopefully you've got time to listen to us today.
Mickey, I don't want to ruin it for everyone, I might. I've got my tinfoil hat on.
Go on, ruin it.
Yeah. Go and enjoy that GMO turkey.
There's still organic turkeys out there.
There are.
Why don't you have a turkey nut? Like have a soy meat sandwich. You can, yum.
For everyone out there who enjoys it, good for you. I was kidding about the GMO. I have no clue. They probably are. It's more than probably. What's the doctor give you? Antibiotics. It's just filled with antibiotics. Never mind. Don't worry about it.
Well,
Keep
that's
eating.
good.
It's lovely. And send me some candied yams. I really like those.
Candied yams. Okay then. Now, candied yams. Without further ado, let's
like sweet
jump.
potato, Mickey. It's delicious.
No, I'm with you. I've just never had candied yams. I like the sound.
I have. I've been in the US for Thanksgiving. It's delightful. Thank you so much for allowing me to experience it.
We should have some. Sorry, just one shout out. Hi Noreen, but also Chindolo agreed he has nothing to do with either of them, but we will have a show on him. I think he's interesting enough to warrant that, Mr. Campbell. So thanks, Chindolo, for reminding us of his existence.
Remember, this is interactive radio, and if you are missing out, we're talking about the people messaging us through the break and through our show inside the chat room at freedomslips.com. So jump in there if you're listening to this for the first time and you want to chat about it. Go in there and say hello.
Absolutely. And I will throw out things once in a while which seem incongruent, but they'll make you think, trust me. Okay. Now the next thing, we are talking about time travel, by the way, guys. Show 144, and as we said, 440 and 100, and it was the original show number 4, which we're trying to reclaim from a YouTube that took our archives. Bad YouTube. Okay, Kerr black hole or Kerr ring. Okay, in 1963, New Zealand mathematician Roy Kerr proposed the first realistic theory for a rotating black hole. The concept hinges on neutron stars, right? That's pretty good, right? Which are massive collapsed stars the size of Manhattan, but with the mass of Earth's sun. I tried to explain this to my nephews, this concept. So a teaspoon of the matter would weigh thousands, if not millions, of tons. Okay, it's extremely dense. Okay, it's an amazing thing, the neutron star.
Mickey, if our sun itself can handle a 1 million of Earths inside it, the 1 teaspoon, or if let's just say a sugar cube, would weigh as much as the Earth.
It should, shouldn't it?
Yes.
That's incredible if you think about that, guys. That's incredible density. Now, Kerr postulated that if dying stars collapsed into a rotating ring of neutron stars, their centrifugal force would prevent them from turning into a singularity. So essentially, it wouldn't all fall into the middle, right? The centrifugal force would keep things to the out. Okay, since the black hole wouldn't have a singularity, which is the center of it, Kerr believed it would be safe to enter without fear of the infinite gravitational force at its center. If Kerr black holes exist, scientists speculate that we might pass through them and exit through a white hole. Think of this as the exhaust end of a black hole, right? Instead of pulling everything into its gravitational force, the white hole would push everything out and away from it, perhaps into another time or even another universe. I don't know if you've seen the movie Interstellar. If you haven't, it's actually really interesting. And this is pretty much right. So if you don't want to hear what Interstellar is about, stop listening now. No, it's So this Kerr black hole is at the center of Interstellar. Have a look. See what you think. Then of course we have the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which really is a wormhole. Okay, they call it the Einstein-Rosen bridge, this and that. And if you've seen the TV series Sliders, they actually talk about the Einstein-Rosen bridge when they go sliding. How about that for science and TV? But so essentially that's the wormhole, and potentially a gateway to another space in the universe. Like so, another same universe but much further away. A potential gateway to another dimension. Potential gateway through time, and potentially another gateway into another universe as well. It's really interesting what these wormholes could potentially do. So Einstein's general theory of relativity allows for the existence of wormholes, since it states that any mass curves space-time. Okay, that's it. Mass curves space-time. So think of it like a ripple effect, if you will. To understand this curvature, think about 2 people holding a bedsheet up and stretching it tight. If one person were to place a baseball, right, or basketball or whatever ball on the bed sheet, the weight of this particular ball would roll into the middle of the sheet and cause the sheet to curve at that point. Now, this is how Einstein is visualizing planets and suns and so forth affecting space-time as well. So space-time seems to create like a well, a gravity well. Okay, that's what people talk about, like a curvature. No. of course, it's simplified, and in this particular example, space is perceived as being two-dimensional, a plane, rather than four-dimensional as it really is in our world. So think of it as a curvature of a four-dimensional space-time reality, right? So the bed sheet is in fact, our space-time. Imagine that this sheet is folded over, leaving a space between the top and the bottom. Placing this particular ball on the top side will cause a curvature to form. If an equal mass were placed on the bottom part of the sheet at a point that corresponds with the location of that ball on the top, the second mass would eventually meet the base ball, or that ball that we put on the other side. This is similar to how wormholes might develop. I tried to explain that concept to my 7 and 8-year-old nephews.
How did that
go? Surprisingly well. So I said to them, what's the shortest... So I took a piece of paper, I drew 2 dots on it, right? So I said to them, well, what's the shortest distance between these 2 points? And they're very bright. In fact, it wasn't just my nephews, it was a couple other kids there as well. And they said, well, so they drew a straight line between the 2 points. And I go, yeah, that's right. And then my nephew goes, oh, no, but I can think of something else. And I go, okay, what are we thinking of? Well, so then he goes, I can't explain it, but I could see in his eyes that something was lighting up. So I took the piece of paper, I folded it in such a way that the 2 points, the 2 dots I had drawn actually met, and I punched through the paper with my pencil. And I said, well, in actual reality, it could be that the shortest distance between 2 points is actually nothing, 0, none, so whoosh. So that's what a wormhole does. And they go, oh, right. And then they start asking questions about black holes, how heavy they are, where are they, how big would they be, and all this.
Nice.
So in my mind, that's how you should teach science, with wonder. Yeah. You should teach science in such a way that kids want to ask questions. Anyway, so that's just a little aside there. So now, in space, masses that place pressure on different parts of the universe could combine eventually to create a kind of tunnel, which is, the wormhole that we spoke about. This tunnel would, in theory, join 2 separate times and allow passage between them, or 2, separate spaces. Of course, it's also possible that some unforeseen physical or quantum property prevents such a wormhole from forming. And even if they do exist, they may be incredibly unstable. So people, in science fiction always talk about stable wormholes, right? If
it's losing stability.
Yes, quickly, let's pump some more quantum energy into the flux capacitor. No, but if you're a Star Trek fan and you listen to you watch Deep Space Nine, the reason Deep Space Nine is there because there is a stable wormhole that connects the Alpha.
They're just parked at the front of it. That's it.
Correct. So the Alpha and the Gamma quadrant, and in fact, the wormhole itself is stabilized by the wormhole aliens. Yeah, that's right. That's the people living inside the wormhole.
That's an easy script.
That's boom. Deus Ex Machina. I don't have to think about it now. I've just just solved it for everybody. No. Okay, so according to astrophysicist Stephen Hawking, wormholes may exist in quantum foam. Okay, now that's the smallest environment in the universe. It's not only the smallest environment in the universe; it's also the underlying environment for everything else. Quantum foam. So out of quantum foam bubble our potentialities. Right? So think of reality as a whole bunch of different outcomes. In fact, all outcomes possible until they're observed. Okay? So in quantum foam, everything bubbles up. That's why it's a nice little analogy, right? So it bubbles up, so everything until it's observed is possible and actually exists in this quantum form, in this state, right? But as soon as you observe it, and this is where the quantum slit experiment comes in, as soon as it is observed, of course, it collapses into one reality function, which is what we call our reality, right?
And that was the one that is chosen. That's right.
Boom, exactly. Now we have to ask ourselves the why, and why is this consensus reality here? And then this is the whole that goes into the hypothesis. Don't want to talk about it. We are prisoners of our consensus reality. That's what we are. We are prisoners of. Let's try to break free of that consensus reality. That's your homework for the weekend. Now, so according to astrophysicist Stephen Hawking, wormholes may exist in quantum form, the smallest environment in the universe. As I said, here tiny tunnels constantly blink in and out of existence, momentarily linking separate places and time, like an ever-changing game of chutes and ladders. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Or snakes and ladders, depending on where you came from.
Snakes and ladders, that's it. Okay, so that's according to Hawking and his take on quantum foam. Now there's also a cosmic string, which was postulated by J. Richard Gott in 1991. And as the name suggests, they're string-like objects that some scientists believe were formed in the early universe. These strings may weave throughout the entire universe, thinner than an atom and under immense pressure. Naturally, this means they pack quite a gravitational pull. Makes sense, right? on anything that passes near them, enabling objects attached to a cosmic string to travel at incredible speeds and benefit from time dilation. That's when time, gets compressed. By pulling two cosmic strings close together or stretching one string close to a black hole, it might be possible, just might be possible, to warp space-time enough to create what's called a closed time-like curve. Another CTC. We've been talking about these, haven't we? Yes, we have. Using the gravity produced by the two cosmic strings, or string in a black hole, a spaceship theoretically could propel itself into the past. To do this, it would loop around the cosmic strings. Interesting stuff. And by the way, we just had an interesting throw-in from Dude Guy. Thank you, Dude Guy, about the ether. And now this is actually this is very very much on topic. Thank you, Dude Guy, and we don't have it in our show notes. So let's make a quick explain. Let's explain what the ether is. So the ether, it was believed before Einstein, is the stuff or the substance that makes up most of the universe. The ether, right? So everything floats in the ether. Rather than having a vacuum, you have an ether.
So between all the planets and everything, where what wasn't a planet is the ether.
Correct. Now, I would argue that dark matter or dark energy have sort of filled the gap of the ether in some way. Do you know what I mean? And we also believe that you can actually manipulate the ether. You would travel in the ether. So it's a very interesting physics concept that has been I guess abandoned. Abandoned in favor of having a vacuum instead of that. So I'm with you, Dude Guy. I'm not quite ready to give up the ether quite yet, and neither was Nikola Tesla, as you so rightly point out. So I would like to give another set of homework for you guys here, which is find out for yourselves what the ether is and think. Well, do you think the ether is actually a thing that is potentially real? And why have we abandoned talk of the ether? Right, that's another thing for you.
Well, it's funny, Mekki. I have to put this out to you. If it's a vacuum, how can you have a wind in it?
Solar wind, correct? Right?
Yeah, exactly. And if it's really a vacuum, why do you have the effect of the sun's pressure outward of particles in a wind that is measurable and that holds back interstellar space and its pressure? How can you have pressure? I know the answer, but it's rhetorical. How can you have pressure in a vacuum? I think the ether still stands. I think it was just a way of being able to describe something you didn't quite understand. But now we understand it more. Why is it not even more valid? We just call it space now, with all of its meanings.
That's right. So the ether actually allowed for a whole bunch. And in fact, if you read old science fiction novels or stories, you will in fact come across the ether all the time. Anything written before the 1950s.
Yep.
We'll talk about the ether, and then in the 1960s and 70s.
Space, we sort of get a different impression about it.
Correct.
Physics had to name it.
Yeah, there you go, boom, right? Now it's fascinating stuff, and I think maybe we should have a whole show on the ether. And another topic I would like to discuss is the electric universe. I think you guys might be very interested in the electric universe.
I've got one question for you.
Yes.
Now you've said this to me before, but it was a couple of years ago. What happened?
Okay, right. So this is in fact something that came to me when we put the show notes together for the original show 3 years ago for show number 4, and this is again, you can call me crazy and that's all good. This is the shiny side out after all. So time is motion, right? Time is motion. I think we all agree. No time, no motion, because how do you measure time? Well, there has to be motion. Would we agree? I think we would. So time needs motion or is motion or whatever it might be, but time and motion are related. So what is motion though? Okay, now motion is movement through space, and I'm not talking about interstellar space. I'm just talking any space. Any space that you occupy. Motion is movement through that. Are we correct?
True.
Are we? Yeah, I think so far we're on the same page, right? Yep. Now quantum entanglement though. Quantum entanglement proves that space and distance are not absolute and may be an illusion.
Correct.
Because there's a simultaneous response no matter the distance between the entangled particles. And Einstein called this spooky action at the distance. We keep referring to it because it's such a massive mystery. So quantum entanglement, you've got two particles, they're entangled, and you do one thing to you do one thing to one particle, there's usually a change in the spin rate or whatever, or even the spin direction. The same thing happens to the other particle, even if it's a gazillion light years away from it. Instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Quantum entanglement. Therefore, time is motion, right? Through space. That means covering distance, right? Therefore, if distance or space are not absolute or an illusion, time must not be absolute or also an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
QED, right? Quadrant demonstrandum, that which was to be proven. Now, this is my take on this. So therefore, both space and time, with quantum entanglement in the mix, seem to be, at the very best, illusions, potentially in a holographic metric. So I don't know. Am I really? Have I eaten my tinfoil hat here?
Mickey, I love where you went with that. It's fantastic. I'm not going to blow it apart. At the moment, the science of time is begging for the opportunity to measure time if you are not moving. So they would love to be able to push out a probe with an atomic clock on it. This, to answer your question, in relevance to all of the stuff we're talking about, to push one out into space that's countering the speed of currently the solar system, because it's moving through space, and to counter the rotational speed and movement of the galaxy, to sit relative to all other matter in space as 0 in X, Y, and Z, so they can measure time. That has been the want to know what on earth happens, because nothing's standing still. As you've pointed out, time is motion. Well, guess what? Everything's moving. The galaxy's moving itself. We're rotating around the center. We're moving on inside that. And our solar system is moving inside that spiral arm. And we're moving around the sun in that spiral arm. We're moving, sometimes, Meki, we're moving counter-rotationally against the speed of the rotation around the galaxy. And sometimes we're moving with it, depending on our position in the year, where they're, and we're tilted. So our acceleration against that time and all of that movement, I think it actually changes the speed in which the days occur relative to us, how we perceive the day, even though we're not meant to be changed by it. Sometimes I think we feel like we get older quicker, and sometimes I feel like we don't get older quicker or as quick.
Yep.
You're about to pull up a book. Whose book is this, Mickey?
Sorry, I've been following the chat in the chat room. The chat in the chat room. That dude guy is talking about here. So, this is a book by Dr. Wayne Dyer. Sorry, I lied to you. It's by Lynn McTaggart, and it's called The Field. And there's a discussion going around on the ether. So I'm actually with Dude Guy on this. I think the ether is a coherent field, and I believe that this field may also hold the Akashic record. Maybe it's one of the same thing. I don't know. It's also the field that I believe holds all of quantum reality until it's observed. So I think it's a very very interesting topic, which we will definitely talk about. So if you guys haven't heard of Lynn McTaggart, I do recommend her book, The Field. I don't know if you can see that. There you go.
Perfect.
The Field.
That's in frame. Well done.
Great, beautiful. So you want to read that? My wife gave this to me as a present. So I was touched. It was very good. It's an excellent, and it's right on topic as well. So look, so it's talking about the observer, the creative observer, and all kinds of. It's fascinating stuff, guys, and we will definitely have a show on this now.
But just to highlight what Mickey says between the entanglement of the particles, and that this answers the question about time. If you're not physically going within our universe, that time seems to be irrelevant, or it just doesn't exist. So there's no way anything could travel that fast, but maybe it's not actually traveling. Maybe the 2 points are physically connected in space together. And in quantum entanglement, it seems like like that's the way it is, or it's using a whole new layer beneath us, beneath this reality, called, like in Star Trek terms, subspace, where you can have instantaneous communications with people across the entire universe, rather than waiting for the time that it would take for light to travel.
You're 100% correct, that Dave. That's exactly it. The thing is, the one thing we can be certain of, is that we have not even scratched at the true knowledge that's out there. Right? We haven't fully understood everything, and all these anomalies, all these mysteries and unsolved questions are why we do this show. Okay, that's the reason.
Mekhi, I have a great description of how humans are working with science. We are bumbling oafs colliding with the new discovery.
Yep.
We bumble into this stuff. We didn't have an idea about what it was going to be because we didn't know it existed. We only just stumble into it. We're bumbling oafs. We really don't understand. We don't have a full grasp of it. And one day I'd love to be able to know.
Yeah, I like to tell people this. So let's say I invent time travel and I send back a radio, just a standard radio, and I'm sending back a million years into the past. And then according to science, that's when our ape-like ancestors roamed the planet. Let's go with that for a second here.
I'm good.
This ape-like ancestor, right? Yeah. Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think they're ape-like. Anyway, point is we send it back in time to this primitive human. They pick up the radio. And they know, if I touch this, if I press this button, it'll play music. And that's all the primitive person will know. I touch this button, it'll play music. Assuming, of course, it picks up our broadcasts from a million years in the future, right?
Okay. It's not an iPod, then.
But that's it. That's it. That's all they know. Like, it doesn't understand anything about frequencies. He doesn't understand anything about broadcasting, electricity, electronics, nothing, right? None. Zero. But this button makes music. Okay, and that's where we are. Ooh, I pushed this and I like. So, okay.
That hiss.
Yes.
Wish they'd build a radio tower for me to listen to music. Yeah. Oh no, I wish they sent back an iPad or an iPod, whatever it's called, an MP3 player. That would have been much better. Thank you.
Much better, right? But having said that, so we scratch at some truth. We look at. In fact, I think that we lost a lot of knowledge. Okay, when it comes to things like that, including time travel. In fact, we'll talk about the Nazi bell a little as well, because obviously the Nazis are said to have dabbled in time travel with that particular contraption. And Hovey, a good friend of the show's, has contributed quite a bit to that particular show, the Nazi bell. Maybe time travel is happening as we speak. We spoke about jump rooms, right? Remember that, guys? There are other potential experiments. The Philadelphia experiment. People say it never happened. I've read this a number of times now. It never happened. No, didn't happen. Don't know what you're talking about. Shut up.
Okay, shut up. Yeah, shut up. Yeah.
Shut up now. But yeah. Anyway, all right. Back on track, guys. There's a history of the time travel concept as well, of course. Now there's no agreement as to what's the earliest example of the time travel story, and we've already spoken about some of the literary examples. However, ancient folk tales and myths sometimes involved something akin to traveling forward in time. For example, in Hindu mythology, the Mahabharata mentions the story of King Raivata Kakudmi, who travels to heaven to meet the creator Brahma and is shocked to learn that many ages have passed when he returns to Earth. Whoa! What does that sound like, Dave? That someone traveled at a relativistic speed and didn't age very quickly, while everybody on the Earth aged a lot?
Completely. That's relativity for you right there in the Mahabharata.
Now, this is also a work that talks about atomic warfare, if you read it closely, and all kinds of other things. If you haven't read it, it's a big read. In fact, the Mahabharata was turned into a TV series. It was like with 150 episodes or something. I don't know.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and each is like 4 hours long.
Mekhi, if you and I were observing a nuclear weapon going off, and we were to write its effects, it would be a perfect translation from what was in the Mahabharata. Yes. Wouldn't it? It would be. They described everything perfectly, but from an unknowing perspective.
That's correct, sir. That's exactly right. And this is, again, you have to read you have to read these old texts with modern eyes. You really have to. Don't think, oh, this is all just fairy tales and nonsense. So,
100 years ago, we would have made fun of it. What do you
we
mean?
did make fun of it.
Strength of 100 suns. Ridiculous. People's hair just coming out. What?
You speak nonsense, sir.
Nonsense.
I will challenge you to a duel because killing you will shut you up.
Shut up.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the Buddhist Pali Canon also mentions time moving at different paces. Ooh. And in the Payasi Sutra, one of Buddha's chief disciples, Kumara Kassapa, explains to the skeptic Payasi that in the heaven of the 33 devas, time passes at a different pace and people live much longer. See, these are all references, as far as I'm concerned, to spacefaring technology. I don't care which way you switch this. Anyway, in the period of our century, 100 years, only a single day. This is Kumara Kassapa explaining to Payasi. In the period of our century, 100 years, only a single day. 24 hours would have passed for them. So 100 years for us, 24 hours for them. In Islam, there's also some reference to time travel, believe it or not. The Quran tells about several individuals who go to sleep in a cave only to wake up after 309 years. Wow. There's also reference about time variation where it states, one day for God is 1,000 years of what we human beings count. Now, this of course brings to mind the story of Rip Van Winkle, who was, falls asleep under the fairy mount and comes to life. Is it 100 years later? I'm not too sure what it was, but again, these skips ahead in time, which are very interesting, and they are just peppered throughout our written and oral histories, guys. This is happening all over the shop. You have to read, and it's just amazing stuff. A similar idea is described in the Christian New Testament book of Peter, where Peter states that with the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. That's 2 Peter 3:8. So, again, you can hate me for this. Please go ahead and hate me. Actually, don't hate me. But I'm saying to you that all these ancient religious texts and all the Abrahamic religions are pretty much the same as far as I'm concerned. That's Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and they all have the same foundation. They're all referring to contact stories. Okay, they're all referring to, go ahead and hate me. Another of the earliest known stories to involve traveling forward in time to a distant future was the Japanese tale of Urashima Taro, first described in the Nihongi, which was in 720 AD. It was about a young fisherman named Urashima Taro who visits an undersea palace and stays there for 3 days. After returning home to his village, he finds himself 300 years in the future. When he's forgotten, his house is in ruins, and his family is long dead. Again, another Rip Van Winkle there. Another very old example of this type of story can be found in the Talmud, with the story of Honi HaMagel, who went to sleep for 70 years and woke up to a world where his grandchildren were grandparents and where all his friends and family were dead. So these are not fictional accounts. And you can twist and turn it any which way you want.
They're not fictional, Mackie. These are stories handed down, which have dates in them. They've got people, real people, and according to everyone and people's word in those days, this has to be taken as fact.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, look, at least Dave and I choose to treat it as ambiguous at the very least. Like, we don't want to dismiss it out of hand, because that's disrespectful to the people that obviously put a lot of stock into writing it down. And back then, that was not easy, guys. Writing down stuff was not easy, okay? And it took a lot of effort for civilizations to reach a certain level of civilization and write things down of this nature and actually have the time to think about stuff like this and write down their memories of times before there was a written word.
Now, also remember that they wrote this down for a reason. They wanted people to know about the story. They wanted people to understand that this is the case. Now, some of these references were religious or handed down in religious texts. I don't think that dismisses from the information inside the text. I think that we should still be looking at that, as we've found with all the flood myths and everything. Well, they're not myths; they were real. And there's now consistent facts to back it up.
Yeah, and again, guys, it's the differences in the stories. It's the differences, not the similarities, which make them more believable. If it's the same, cross-cultural, cross-cultural contamination, no argument.
Exactly.
No argument from me at all. But it is the differences that are telling. Anyway, so which of course launches our discussion into time travel. Well, you can go into time travel lounge, right? Into a time travel possibility. So let's launch our lounge.
I would love to do that. I'd like to be sitting in the first class lounge, waiting for people of the time traveling nature to come through their portals. In fact, there was I think it was a TV ad with a time portal on it. That was Baldrick doing his time show. Flight into the future. Flight into the future. In 1935, Air Marshal Sir Victor Goddard of the British Royal Air Force had a harrowing experience in his Hawker Hart biplane. Goddard was a wing commander at the time, and while on a flight from Edinburgh, Scotland, to his home base in Andover, England, he decided to fly over an abandoned airfield at Drem. I hope that's correct. Not far from Edinburgh it was. The useless airfield was overgrown with foliage, the hangars were falling apart, and the cows grazed where the planes were once parked. Goddard then continued his flight to Andover, but encountered a bizarre storm. In the high winds of the storm, the strange brown-yellow clouds... In the high winds of the storm, strange brown-yellow clouds, he lost control of his plane, which began to spiral downward toward the ground. Narrowly averting a crash, Goddard found that his plane was heading back towards Drem. As he approached the old airfield, the storm suddenly vanished, and Goddard's plane was now flying in brilliant sunshine. This time, as he flew over the Drem airfield, it looked completely different. The hangars looked like new. There were 4 airplanes on the ground. 3 were familiar biplanes, but painted in an unfamiliar yellow. The 4th plane was a monoplane, which the RAF had none of these in 1935. The mechanics were dressed in blue overalls, which Goddard thought odd since all RAF mechanics dressed in brown overalls. Strange, too, that none of the mechanics seemed to notice him fly over. Leaving the area, he again encountered the storm but managed to make his way back to Andover. It wasn't until 1939 that the RAF began to paint their planes yellow, enlisted a monoplane of the type that Goddard saw, and the mechanics' uniforms were switched to blue. Had Goddard somehow flown 4 years into the future, then returned to his own time? I think so. And I think this matches that same thing that was where the Cessna pilot arrived an hour early going through a time portal.
Yep.
Amazing story, Mekki, that one.
It is. In fact, he later actually lectured on UFOs. He actually became interested in UFOs after he retired.
Oh.
So... interesting. An experience like that would probably push you toward the supernatural, right?
Yeah,
or the paranormal.
Yeah, completely.
Now, the next story we have for you is again, these are not fictional. These are whether or not they're true, I don't know, but they're certainly represented as true by the people that experienced them. Caught in a temporal vortex. Dr. Raul Rios Centeno, a medical doctor and an investigator of the paranormal, recounted to author Scott Corrales a story told to him by one of his patients, a 30-year-old woman who came to him with a serious case of hemiplegia, which is total paralysis of one side of her body. I was at a campground in the vicinity of Macahuasi, she told him, and Macahuasi is the famous stone forest located about 35 miles east of Lima in Peru. She goes on to say, I went out exploring late at night with some friends. Oddly enough, we heard the strains of music and noticed a small torch-lit stone cabin. I was able to see people dancing inside, but upon getting closer, I felt a sudden sensation of cold, which I paid little attention to, and I stuck my head through an open door. It was then that I saw the occupants were clad in 17th century fashion. I tried to enter the room, but one of my girlfriends pulled me out. It was at that moment that half of the woman's body became paralyzed.
Wow.
Okay, at that particular time, guys. Was it because the woman's friend pulled her out of the stone cabin when she was halfway into it? Was half her body caught in some temporal vortex or dimensional doorway? Dr. Centeno reported that an EEG was able to show that the left hemisphere of her brain did not show signs of normal functioning, as well as an abnormal amount of electrical waves. Make of that what you will.
Oh wow, that's extraordinary. I've got another one, Mickey. The Highway to the Past. In October 1969, a man identified only as LC and his business associate Charlie were driving north from Abbeville, Louisiana, towards Lafayette on Highway 167. If you know it, message us in the chat. As they were driving along a nearly empty road, they began to overtake what appeared to be an antique car travelling very slowly. The two men were impressed by the mint condition of the nearly 30-year-old car. It looked virtually new and they were puzzled by its bright orange license plate on which was stamped only 1940. Obviously, including that would be the 1940th car. They figured, however, that the car had been part of some antique show. As they passed the slow-moving vehicle, they slowed their car to get a good look at the old model. The driver of the old car was a young woman dressed in vintage 1940s clothing, and a passenger was a small child likewise dressed. The woman seemed panicked and confused. LC asked if she needed help and, through her rolled-up window, indicated yes. LC motioned for her to pull off to the side of the road. The businessman pulled ahead of her old car and turned onto the shoulder of the road. When they got out, the old car had vanished without a trace. There were no turn-offs or anywhere else the vehicle could have gone. Moments later, another car pulled up to the businessman and, quite puzzled, said he had seen their car pull off to the side and the old car simply vanish into thin air. That's like a time portal that they were both occupying the same space.
Yes, sir. Now, again, we've brought a few examples of these stories to you tonight here, but there are quite a few where there seems to be something wrong with the space-time fabric, at least on this planet, right? Where these holes or pockets or rips or tears, I don't know what you call them, appear. And then, people go in and out, and not just between different times, but potentially between different dimensions, as we discussed in another show. Fascinating stuff, I think. So something is not quite right with this particular reality. The Future Roadhouse is the next little episode we bring to you. It's a bit like a Twilight. It's a bit like a Twilight show, right? A Twilight Zone show. You got these little Future Roadhouse.
Do not adjust your contrast.
We are now in control of everything you hear and see. One night in 1972, 4 co-eds from Southern Utah University were driving back to the dorm in Cedar City after spending the day at a rodeo in Pioche, in Nevada. It was about 10 p.m. and the girls were eager to get back to the dorm before curfew. They were traveling along Highway 56, which has a reputation for being haunted. Might have to look at that in some detail. A while after taking a fork in the road that turned to the north, the girls were surprised to see that the black asphalt has turned into a white cement road that eventually ended abruptly at a cliff face. They turned around and tried to find their way back to the highway, but soon became concerned about the unfamiliar landscape. Red canyon walls that gave way to open grain fields and pine trees, which they had never encountered before in this part of the state. Feeling completely lost, the girls felt some comfort when they approached a roadhouse or tavern. They pulled into the parking lot and one of the passengers poked her head out of the window to get directions from a few men coming out of the building. But she screamed and ordered the driver to get out of there fast. The girls sped off, but realized they were being chased by the men in strange tri-wheeled, so 3-wheeled, egg-shaped vehicles. Speeding again through the canyon, the girls seemed to have lost their pursuers and found their way back to the familiar desert highway. What was the reason for the scream? Asked her girlfriends. The men, she said, weren't human.
Wow.
Oh, what?
Boom. Wow, that's
I know, right?
I love that one.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to go on this highway, Mickey.
Yeah, I know.
Highway 56, we're there. We're there.
Oh, we're taking it.
Hotel Time Warp. 2 British couples vacationing in the north of France in 1979 were driving. looking for a place to stay for the night. Along the way, they were struck by some signs that seemed to be for a very old-fashioned type of circus. The first building they came to looked like it might be a motel, but some men standing in front of it told the travellers it was an inn, and that the hotel could be found down the road. Further on, they did find an old-fashioned building marked hotel. Inside, they discovered almost everything was made of heavy wood, and there seemed to be no evidence of such modern conveniences as telephones. Their rooms had no locks but simple wooden latches, and the windows had wooden shutters but no glass. In the morning, as they ate breakfast, 2 gendarmes entered wearing only old-fashioned caped uniforms. After getting what turned out to be a very bad directions to Avignon, from the gendarmes, the couples paid a bill that came to only 19 francs, and they left. After 2 weeks in Spain, the couples made a return trip through France and decided to stay at the interesting, if odd, but very cheap hotel. This time, however, the hotel could not be found. Certain they were in the exact same spot, they saw the same circus posters. They realized that the old hotel had completely vanished without a trace. Photos taken at the hotel did not develop, and a little research revealed that the French gendarmes wore uniforms of that description prior to 1905.
Wow, again, you can poo-poo it all you want, guys, right? And then the bunkers and skeptics out there as well. But I mean, what would compel anyone really to make up things like that? You know, is it attention-seeking? Well, you say yes, maybe, but I think quite a few of these stories actually happened the way they were described by the people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's nothing that would stop us, in science even, from experiencing these things, right? And we don't know enough about space-time, about quantum foam, to say, oh no, none of this is possible. I think it's this. I mean, these are regular folk, right? They're not saying, you know, they're just normal people, and they had something extraordinary happen to them, and it's similar with experiences and visitors and so forth.
Yep.
Anyway, just a little aside here. And now the next one is a preview of an air raid. In 1932, a German newspaper reporter J. Bernhard Hatten and his colleague, photographer Joachim Brandt, were assigned to do a story on the Hamburg-Altona shipyards. And they're big. After being given a tour by a shipyard executive, the 2 newspapermen were leaving when they heard the drone of overhead aircraft. Now, that's 1932, guys. They at first thought it was a practice drill, you know, but that notion was quickly dispelled when bombs began exploding all around, and the roar of anti-aircraft gunfire filled the air. The sky quickly darkened, and they were in the middle of a full-blown air raid. They quickly got in their car and drove away from the shipyard back toward Hamburg. As they left the area, however, the sky seemed to brighten, and they again found themselves in the light of a calm, ordinary late afternoon. They looked back at the shipyards, and there was no destruction, no bomb-induced inferno they had just left, no aircraft in the sky, nothing. The photos Brandt had taken during the attack showed nothing unusual. It wasn't until 1943 that the British Royal Air Force attacked and destroyed the shipyard, just in the same way as Hutton and Brandt had experienced it 11 years earlier.
Wow! Do you know what, Mackie? We're right at the top of the hour. The show will finish in a few minutes. Do you know what? I think that we can wrap up the story. So I'm just going to add something. For those of you who don't believe this kind of thing exists, think about the interdimensional time travelers, which I think that's how you get from one place to another. Whether or not I was just thinking, Mackie, the invention of the radio and radio waves. Maybe we played with the Earth somehow. I don't know. Maybe,
it's possible.
You know, maybe Tesla and his machines, turning up radio frequencies, did something to the time continuum, because if they made slight tears in time that we go out and we come back through, or they become, just Star Trek-ish, they just appear in front of us or whatever, and we can interact with them to some extent. It does stand to reason that we would experience them. They're talking about there's wormholes between us and the sun because of the magnetic fields.
Yes.
To me, I think this makes sense. And I think the explanation of it makes a whole bunch of other things make sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it would certainly give credence or give an explanation to things like poltergeist phenomena, hauntings. And even the Voyage manuscript all of a sudden becomes at least understandable. It just felt. Oh, there's the music.
It is, and those unusual people who have turned up speaking a different language from a different country doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
Exactly true. Guys, we're going to catch you for show 145. Check out our archives. We'll see you next week. Enjoy another good show, and take care.
Enjoy your holiday weekend, guys.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Eat some candy yams for me. Take care.